Hello and welcome. I'm Raghav, and today we are going to learn something very important and very interesting. In testing, in automation, whenever we have any failure, whenever our test fails, one of the very important things is we need to find out and figure out why exactly this failure happened, what was the error, what exactly happened at the time of the failure, or what was the screenshot of our application, what was the state of our application. We want to see all the snapshots and the exact time, the timeline, and all the details at that particular moment when the failure happened. So that is exactly what we are going to solve today using trace viewer in Playwright. So we are going to see what is trace viewer. We will see how to use trace viewer with all the options, all the command line options, different ways to view trace in Playwright. We will also learn how to set tracing programmatically, that is into our code. And then after watching this session, you can take the quiz. You will find the link in the description below this video. So with that, let's get started and let us see what is trace viewer. So trace viewer in Playwright is a GUI tool that helps us to view our test after it has got executed. We can go back and see how the test got executed, what was the snapshots, the timelines, all the screenshots, all the details, all the environment details, all the network details, and everything about our test. And that is why we call it as trace, that like we are tracing the test that has been executed with all the details. Now, here you can see this is a screenshot of the trace viewer, and let me show you the exact trace viewer. So you can see this is the trace viewer. This is a GUI application, and here you can see this is one of the tests that I have executed, and you can see at the top there is a timeline. And as I go through the timeline, you can see the application screenshot, the state of the application at every point. You can see from here, and then you can see all these steps here. So you can see here we went to the browser, here we went to the application, and then you can see the screenshot of the application, the snapshot. You can also see action before and after state. So let me show you on any click event. This will be very interesting to see. Let us say this, click on logout button. Here you can see the action. When you go to the action, you can see exactly where did the action happen, and you can see this red dot here. And then if I say before, so it shows the state of the application before this action, and then after, you can see this was the state after. So it got logged out, and we can see the screen. Here you can see all the call, all the details, console, network, and the source, where exactly, from where exactly this was executed. So this is the line that got executed here. So this is something very useful, very important. And in a moment, you will be able to see this trace viewer for your test. So let's get started. Let me stop this trace viewer now. And now let us see how to use trace viewer, and we will go step by step. Step number one is we can open our config file and set the property and option for trace. Now, I will tell you exactly, I will tell you the other options as well, how you can do it from the code itself or how you can do it from the command. But let us start with the config file. So I will go to my VS Code, and I will go to my project. So this is my project, and in your project, you will find this config file, that is playwright.config. So I will go to this config file, and here, let us see the trace option or configuration. So here, if I scroll down, you can see here is the trace configuration, and it is set on first retry. That means whenever a test will be retried, then it will have this trace enabled, and it will capture the trace of the test. And there are other options that I will show you. There are options that you can keep it on permanently, so it will keep tracing every execution. You can only trace on failure, or you can trace on the first retry, or you can keep it off permanently. So let us go with this. Trace is on first retry, and then if I have to get the trace only on the first retry, I should also have the retries set to at least 1. So I will just say retries, and I will say 1. Here already there is retry for the CI environment. Let me comment this out. I'm pressing control and / on my keyboard to add a comment here. So this is commented out, and now I have retries one, and the trace is set to on first retry. So now we have already discussed this will collect the trace only when retrying for the first time. Now let us run our test and let us run a test to fail. So let me go to any of my tests. Let us go to this was the test we recorded in the record demo when we learned how to record. So here we are going to this sourcedemo.com application, and we are clicking on the username, adding the username, and then adding the password, and then clicking on the login button. So let us say I will change the selector for the login button. I will just add here something like 1, 2, 3, which will make it a invalid locator, invalid selector. And now I will try to run this. So this is the name of this file is record1-demo.spec _demo.spec. All right. So let me run this, and we have already set the configuration. Make sure that you save the configuration file. And now I will go to the terminal. You can go from here or just press Control and J on your keyboard, Control plus J. It will bring up the terminal. And here I will say npx playwright test, and the test file I want to run is our record. Okay, it is, I think it has gone to the test results folder. That is not what I want. I want to go to the tests folder, and then from here I want to run this record1-demo.spec.js. And if you want, you can also run in a headed mode so that you can see the execution on the browser. So browser will be in a headed mode, that is you will see the physical browser. So it is running, and you can see here it has entered username and password, and now it will try to click on the login button, but because the selector it will not find the login button, we have already added invalid selector, so it should fail. Now the other thing is, let me just stop this for now. What I want to do is I'm pressing Control C, and I will stop this for now. Okay, so what I want to do is, because you can see whenever there is a failure, it is waiting for a long time. I can decrease the timeout. Again, I will go to the config file, and this is optional. I'm doing this just for this demo. So the timeout is 30 into 1000 here, which I will change to 10 into 1000, which will be like 10,000 milliseconds, like 10 seconds. And here also, I can change this timeout for expect to something like 3000 milliseconds. That will be 3 seconds. And now I will run again. So I will say here, I'm pressing the up arrow on my keyboard to go to the last command, and I will just say --project. If I want to run on a single browser, I will say project Chromium. So it will only run on Chrome, so that we will save some time in the demo. So let's see now. So it has started the test, and it will only run on this browser. So you can see it has added username and password, and now waiting for the login button or waiting for the object with the selector that we have, which will fail. So now you can see it is retrying one time because we have set retry count to 1 in our config file. So now it is retrying, and now it should also get the traces. So it has completed. And now if you see the report, it has already opened the report. You can see this is the initial run, the primary run, and this is the retry. So we have got the retry as well as the run results. And here you can see it has failed here, and here also in the retry it has failed. Now if you see in the retry, if you go to the retry execution and you see here, you can see there is a traces here. So there is a section for traces, and you can click here and it will open the trace GUI tool, or you can download the trace zip file from here. Now before doing that, let me show you. I will go to the next step, which is after running, you should check that trace.zip file is created under the test results folder. So you can go to your project and there should be a test results folder now. And under the test results folder, you should find a trace.zip file. And if you physically go to this folder on your system, I will say reveal in file explorer, you can see this is the test results. And here, because we have executed for a single browser, therefore we have a trace only for Chrome. Otherwise, if you had executed on multiple browsers, you will have multiple trace files. And you can see this is the trace.zip. Now there are different ways to view this. One of the ways is you can directly go to your result and click on this traces. And you can see this is our trace viewer tool, the GUI tool. And here, as I have shown you at the top, we have the timeline, and you can also see the steps here. So you can see this is the browser context. This says go to this page. Then here it says click on this locator. Then here it says fill this username, and you can see the username is added here now. As you can go in the timeline, you can see this happening. Okay, and then here you can see the metadata, where you can see the start time, end time, duration, all the environment, the browser, the platform, the screen size, viewport, all these details you will get. And in the actions, you can see all these steps. So here it went to the URL, and you can see the screenshot here. Then here you can see it clicked on this username box, and here you can see the before and after screenshots. Then here it filled the data username. So you can see this was the action, this was the before screenshot, and in the after screenshot we have this username added. Also, if you come here to the right side, here you can see the call details. Here we have all this duration parameters, all the logs. This is the console. If you have anything in the console, you will get it here. And this is the network details. So if you have any details for the network, you can see here. In this case, there were so many requests that went to the server. All these API requests you can see. You can see all the details here. You can expand and see all the details. And then in the source, you can see the exact code of our test, and it will highlight the step that got executed here. Okay, so you can see here, this will now become very easy to troubleshoot. This was our step, and here you can see the action. So the action is, it will click on this login button, and it has a red dot, but it is kind of invisible because the background also is red. Otherwise, you will see this red dot wherever it is clicking. So you see it like this, and then you can see the before and the after, and then you can see all the details. So this is how you can get the trace. And now this was how you can get it from the HTML report. But if you do not have the HTML report, or you don't want to get it from there, you can also directly use the trace.zip file and use the command npx playwright show-trace and the location of the trace zip file. So let me show you this. I'm going to close this now, and I'm also going to stop serving the HTML report. And now I will say npx playwright, and I will say show-trace, and then the location of the trace file. So our trace file is under this test results. So I will say test-results, and then we have this this folder, and then we have this trace.zip file. Now see, I just type the first few characters, and then I press tab, and it is auto completing the name. And you should also do this. This is just for beginners, so that you do not make any typo, and you can be very fast in writing these commands. So I will hit enter, and let us now see. It should bring up the trace viewer application again. And yes, you can see the same trace viewer is again here, and again you will see all these details. So this is how you can view the trace. You can create and view the trace. Now, the other options we have already seen this on first retry. It will record the trace only when retrying, only for the first time. Then if you want to keep it off permanently, you can keep it off. You can say off in the config file, or from the command. You can keep it permanently on, but make sure if you do this, it will hamper the performance because it will keep on tracing every test, every step. It will keep on taking all the snapshots, screenshots. So it can be, it will be heavy on performance. Then retain on failure, this can be a very common option using for using traces, because this option will record a trace. It will record for each test, but it will remove from the successful test run. So let's say you have executed all your tests. At the end, when you will see, you will only find traces for the failed tests, and that is what we want. We want to see what exactly happened, what was the issue, only for the failed tests. And you can also set trace from the command. If you do not want to set it from the config file, you can set it from the command line, and this is the command. This is our normal command, that is npx playwright test. Along with this, we can add the option -- trace, and then we can use any of these options: on, off, on first retry, retain on failure, we can use here. Okay, so this was interesting. Now let us say see different ways to view the trace. We have already seen the command line way. We have already seen the HTML report way. That is, you can directly see, you can view the trace from HTML report, and from the HTML report, you can also download the trace zip file. We have already seen these two options. The third option is using this utility trace.playwright.dev. So you can directly go to this link on your browser, trace.playwright.dev. So let me show you. I will go to my browser and I will go to trace.playwright.dev, trace.playwright.dev. This is the link, and here you can just drag and drop your trace zip file, or you can also browse from here. So in my case, let me go to the folder where I have my trace.zip file. It is here. I'm just going to drag and drop it here. I will drag and drop it here, and you can see we have got our trace viewer. So this is the third option. So these are the different ways you can view the trace. Now, how to set trace in the code programmatically? So this is very important. So I'll just go here. I'll go to my project, and here, let us say I will go to a different file. Let me go to this example.spec.js. This is the file everyone will be having, because this is the default example file that comes along with Playwright installation. So here I can say I can add the step here. So you can see we normally add the page fixture. We can also pass the context fixture here, which is the browser context. And then using this context, we can say context.tracing.start, and we can give the options like snapshots true, screenshots true, and then we can have our test code. And wherever we want to stop, we can say context.tracing.stop, and we can give the location and name of the trace zip file. So wherever you want to start, you can start the tracing, and wherever you want to stop, you can stop the tracing. So let us try this. I'm going to this test file, and I will say here at the start of the test, let me make this title of the test shorter so that you can see this part as well. So here where we are passing the page fixture, I will say comma, and I will also pass the context fixture. And this is the browser context. If you hover over it, you can see all the details for this context. And then let's say I want to start at the start before we start our steps. So I will say here await context.tracing.start, await context.tracing. You should also see all these auto suggestions. Otherwise, you can press Control plus space on your keyboard to get the auto suggestion box. And I will say start. And then I will give the options. So I will say here, so the options we can give is snapshots, screenshots. So I will say snapshots. You can see we are getting these options, and I will say true. And then I will say screenshots, and I will say true. Okay. And if you want to see the difference, if you hover over the snapshots, you can see this will capture the DOM snapshots on every action. So if you have seen in the trace viewer, we could see the before, after, action, all these, what was exactly the snapshot before, what was exactly the snapshot of the application after this action, all that is coming from snapshots. And in the screenshots, this will capture the screenshots during tracing. Now, this is the code. And if you like, you can put this in the next line for easy readability. So I can do like this. I can put all this in different lines so that it is very easy to read. And you can also do a right click and say format document, or press Shift plus Alt plus F to correct all the formatting, and you can save. So this code, this program, this command will start the tracing, and then wherever you want to stop. So I want to go to the end, and then here I want to stop the tracing. So again, I will say await context dot tracing dot stop. And here in the options, I will pass the path, that is where I want to store the file. So let's say I will say, you can give any name. So I will say test1 dot zip, or I can say test1 underscore trace dot zip, and that's it. All right. And that's it. So I'm I want to get trace for this particular test. Let us now go to the terminal, and I will run it now. So here I will say npx, make sure that you save the file, and I will say npx playwright test, and I want to go to a particular file. So I will give the location of this example.spec.js. And this time I'm just running it in the headless mode with all the browsers. So because there are two tests, so it is running this, that is fine, because it will overwrite the earlier trace file on every new execution. That is why it is showing me this. Okay, so it is running. And let's just wait and check if we get the trace file. And this is done. And now if I go and check, let me expand this terminal window and clear everything. And I will say ls to list out all the contents. And you can see trace1 test1 hyphen trace.zip is created, and it is here. You can see here. And to check it, to view the trace, I will say the command npx playwright, and I will say show hyphen trace, and then I will give the name of the or location of the file along with name, which is test1 trace.zip, and I will hit enter. Let us now see. So it opens the trace viewer, and yes, you can see. And because here it had gone to the playwright.dev application, so you can see all these screenshots and all the snapshots. And if I go to this step, which is clicking on this get started, you can see it is highlighting this get started. And if I see the before snapshot, this was before the snapshot, before this action, and the after snapshot, you will see it will go to that particular link. So let me see here, action before and after, it has gone to this intro, and you can see all the details here, and here you can see all these details. So you can do like this, and then this we have done within a test. Now if you like, normally in practical, in real world scenario, you may not want to add these codes for starting the trace and stopping the trace with every test. You may want to do it once at a global level, at a file level mostly. So you may want that when you're at the top of your file, you may start the trace, and at the end of the file, when all the tests are executed, you can then stop the tracing. Now we can use hooks here. We can use before all and after all hooks. Now, until this lecture in this series, we have not yet discussed about hooks. I will have a separate session on hooks. What are hooks? How do we use them? But for now, let us just see the before all and after all hook. And that simply means if you want to run something, if you want to do something before running all the tests, we can use before all hook. And if you want to do something, if you want to run something after all the tests are completed, we can use the after all hook. So here, I will say, I will go back to my project, and I will say here, in this file itself, that is example.spec.js, I will create a hook. I will say test dot before all, and here I will just use this async function, and I'll say async, and here I will pass the browser context or the browser fixture, because for this before all and after all hooks, we don't have the page or the browser context directly that we can pass in a test. We cannot do that. So therefore, I'm passing this browser, and then I will again use this declaration like this. So we have created a before all function like this. And here I will say, I will have to declare a context, a variable called context. So I will say at the top, let context. And then in this function, I will say context is equal to browser.newContext. And then I can use this context variable. So I will say context is equals to browser.newContext. And this we have to do because in a before all hook, we cannot directly pass context. So if I try to pass this, you will see there is some error and you will not be able to use it directly. So if I try to say here, context dot, start, you will see we are not getting the start tracing here. Or even if I say context dot tracing, let me see if we do it like this, you will see some issue. Let me show you. If I directly say here, if I directly copy this here, let me try to do it this way, and you will see the details here. And let me comment this out. And then here, if I say test dot after all, and then again I say async function, and here if I try to pass a context, I think here I will have to say directly using the async. I will just say I will declare this function like this, and here I'm going to stop tracing. So I'm just going to copy this stop tracing command, and I will comment it out from here, and I will add it in the after all function. And let me change the file name to test2.trace. Now you can see here, let me do formatting as well. You can see here, it is not getting the context here. And that is the reason here, if we are using before all and we have to use the same context in after all, I can just say here, let context. And here I will pass the browser context or browser fixture. And then here I will say await context equals browser dot new context. Okay, and then here, yeah, this should work now. Then here I'm saying I will say now here okay, I will have to I will say await. Now I will say context dot tracing, and I will say start. Okay, so this is now working fine, and also you can see in the after all there is no error and we can use it. Now one more thing that you will have to do here is here we have to use the same context to create a new page. So I will say here I'll declare one more variable called page, and then I will say here page equals context dot new page. And now from the test, we can remove both of these fixtures because now the page is being used from here. This one where we have already set this to a new page here. So I can remove this from here. In all the tests, I can remove the page fixture. So in the second test as well, I can remove the page fixture. And now tracing should work for all the tests in this particular file. And also if you see here, the after all, it is not necessary that you put this after all hook at the end of the file. You can put it anywhere. It will anyways run after all the tests. So this should run and get the trace in this file test2-trace.zip, and let us see, make sure that you save your file. And now I will say here, I have to stop this trace and I will go and run this test, and let us now see. So I'm running the test file. So it will run the 2 tests on all the 3 browsers. So that means 6 tests. Now there is some issue. It says page.goto is not a function, and that is because I think we here did some mistake. We are saying here, here I think we should have await, and then here we should directly be able to say context. Yes, and yes, it is same here. I have added it here, but forgot to add it here, and this should be fine. And here also now I should be able to say context.new page, and there is no error. That means this should be fine. And then here now it should work. So let us now try. I will say Control C and Y, and I will run this. Oh, sorry, this is for trace. Let me go to the command to run the test, and this is the command, and I will now run it and check. So let's now see. It is running 2 tests on 3 browsers. So there will be a total of 6 runs. It is done, and still there is some issue, and the same issue, page.goto is not a function. Let me check again. I will say, okay, I believe, did we add await here in the when we declared this page? I think this may be the issue. Let me check now. Should work now. Let me see here. I will stop this and run it again. Make sure that you save. And this is the command. Now see, I'm not editing out all these sections where I have made a mistake and I'm troubleshooting and figuring out and correcting the mistakes, so that you can also see you will also be making such mistakes in the beginning, and then you will learn from here. So hopefully this should work. Let me check. It has gone to Firefox, so hopefully it is working now. And now it is running the second test on Firefox, and then it is now still on Firefox. Okay, it is retrying on Firefox because we also have, if we have a failure, it will retry. So that means there was some failure as well. And now it is running on WebKit. And I believe it is also creating the trace file, as we can see here. And it is also retrying. I think one of the tests is failing. That is the reason it is retrying that test, because in the config we have set retry count to 1. So that is why it is retrying, which is fine. And yes, this should complete now. Again on WebKit, because of the failure, it is retrying once. And then let us just wait for this to complete. Okay, so now it is done, and it has also started the report. And you can see there are all these home has Playwright. This is passing. Demo test has passed on Chromium but has failed on Firefox and WebKit. And this home has Playwright has failed on WebKit. That is all fine. What we are interested in is we want to check the, you can see it has retried here, and you can see all these details. It is missing the attachment trace. That is fine because we have programmatically added it. So let us see if we have got the trace file, and you can press Control B to hide the Explorer or to show the Explorer, and you can see test2 underscore trace.zip is here. So to see this file, I will say here npx playwright show trace, and I will go to this test2 trace.zip, and let us now see if we get all the details on the trace file. So yes, it is opening the trace file, and you can see we have got all these details along with all the screenshots, and everything is here. So this is how you can create. These are the different ways you can see what is the best way for you. And with that, we have completed this session. You can take the quiz, and you will find the link in the description. If you have any questions, you can let me know. Thank you for watching, and never stop learning.